Hello and welcome to a very special, not balding edition of the El Mercenary Moment. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm the not bald Brad Hathcock.
Show the people, Brad. Wow.
I'm not balding in any capacity
I
at all.
actually have a lot of hair, like all of the hair.
So the TikTok haters are out on some of our videos, which is great because fuck the haters. Apparently, we were both called balding and middle aged, which I guess yeah we could be considered middle aged. Yeah, sure. I just turned 37. I think that's pretty middle aged.
It turns out people in at any age can do this at no cost. So pretty cool,
Yeah.
huh?
Well, it was funny because somebody was like, there should be like 1,000,000% tax on microphones. I said I'd still be able to afford it because they're not that expensive.
We we've attracted some very stupid comments, yeah, we'll say. But oh well.
Well, we also make some very stupid comments. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, you
Are you
think
saying
your
nothing
comments,
matters?
well, absolutely nothing matters. I mean, but people's comments on TikTok, especially the hate comments, we've mentioned this before. We like them. Keep them
I
coming.
I don't read them and I don't care. And please just do that. Go ahead and just write whatever you want about us.
Yeah, we don't give a fuck.
In fact, do something really crazy and just write something nice. Blow our minds.
It's not all negative comments, okay? There's some just less negative comments, I guess, that are like more neutral, say positive, more neutral.
You know, it's funny because, like, especially lately, we're bringing two sides of an argument. I mean, we're not like in agreement on a lot of things. So when people are like complaining about you saying whatever you say, it's like I am representing a different side of the argument. I don't know why people don't understand that, but
Well, we don't inherently agree on everything anyway. Like in our real lives, the two of us, we don't agree on everything.
no.
Like, and we talk about those things here. And I think there's an issue where I may be giving a piece of information that may not be my opinion. It's just an actual piece of information, and it has no bearing on what I think on a subject. It's a data point. You know what I mean? But people will take some of that shit as like, oh, that's your opinion. No, it's a fact of the case that we're like at hand that we're talking about. So I don't know. People are just pissed off and fuck them.
I mean, as a correspondent, you do sometimes. No, I don't want to give you that title. You're just giving out whatever you think. With that, we should probably just kick off with the thing I'm probably the most interested in. That's going to piss everybody off. There were two major media properties that came out on almost the exact same day: Snow White and Assassin's Creed Shadows. And it turns out both of them are not doing very well right now.
Yeah, we were definitely expecting Snow White to not do well. The Assassin's Creed, is that another game? Another Assassin's Creed game?
Yeah, this one's controversial for a number of reasons. One of them being that it's sort of like we're the history game and we're like focused on all the history, and then they plucked an obscure character and kind of fleshed out a story that isn't necessarily real, but also there's just a lot of offensive imagery in the game that people in Japan have been pointing out like isn't good, and it's all been kind of leading up to this after a long delay where it's buggy as shit. The credits have, I think they're like 2 hours long, and they have,
That's insane.
it's insane, and they have like parts of, there's like smiley face characters and stuff in there where like if you buy a piece of software that you used on the game, the software tells you like if you want to give us credit in your credits, this is how you do it, and they included that as part of the credits, which is really embarrassing. And there's just a lot of weird stuff like that. But you know, Ubisoft's touting this number of like we've got 2 million players, and like on Steam it's like, I don't know, 36,000 people like max. So like those numbers seem dubious because you can't really get those numbers from the consoles. I went and checked; it's not even in like the top list of Xbox games. So I don't know how it's going to sell, but modern media is dead, and it takes so long to make a video game, 5 years, maybe more. Or in the case of Snow White, they made a movie with a person who's terrible, and then had a year and a half to sit on her horrible opinions on everything. So it's been really interesting to see these two kind of bomb at the same time. I'm not saying Assassin's Creed bombed yet, we don't know, but I heard a lot. I listened to a podcast yesterday that was like, this game is great. And then half of the podcast was them complaining about how it wasn't great because of this.
Well, so with Assassin's Creed, like you typically see a lot of players right off the bat, and then you see those numbers drop off after the first like 2 weeks or so because people are like, yeah, this is just dog shit, and I just can't even get through it. So you don't want to play it anymore. So they like you see those numbers on Steam go down pretty frequently. As far as Snow White goes, I mean, they had 8 million reshoots. I think this thing cost over 300 million with all those reshoots and everything. And that doesn't include marketing. And they're going to have a lower than projected opening of what, 53 million, 57 million, something like that.
I saw before we got on here, I checked, it was 47.
So yeah, that's obviously not good. This has been, I mean, they completely had to do away with like the whole dwarf thing because they made it was supposed to be what, Hugh Grant was like one of the dwarves or something like that.
I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to that. But I think
I'm pretty sure he was supposed to be one of them, and everybody, they just had like an amalgamation of different people being dwarves, but they didn't look like dwarves. They were just like miniature people. And then I'm pretty sure people were like, well, why wouldn't you hire dwarves to do this? Like, if you're going to do live action. And so they ended up just like digitally making all the dwarves for the film. Like, that was pretty controversial right off the bat, I believe, with this movie. And then it was like Rachel Zegler or whatever her name is, like having all those comments. And I just recently saw somebody be like, so you're going to tell me that like one of the world's hottest in Gal Gadot is going to have to be an ugly witch and say that Rachel Zegler's hotter than her? They were like, in what world does that actually like make sense? So,
yeah,
people are clowning this movie already. I mean, it's a bomb. I mean, everybody knew it was going to be a bomb, and Disney is on a strong run of bombs there.
I think Captain America is at 400 million worldwide right now. I doubt that's profitable, but I don't know. Yeah, it's funny, the Snow White thing. I was watching a review of it, and the guy who was reviewing it was pointing out, like, you really can see all of the reshoots in the film because of the way they edit it. There's like, it's just really weird. There's a lot of weird shit going on. And so that was interesting. I guess this is the
Well, I
first
mean, they
live
just had
action.
Craven, like Craven the Hunter went into theaters in what, December? And that was a complete box office nightmare too. So, that didn't help them. I've been waiting to see that on like Disney Plus or something so I could watch how shitty it is. Because I was like kind of interested in that because it's like it's more of like a villain character that gets introduced and has his own movie. So I kind of like that, but it was terrible from what I hear. And Disney just keeps that track record of like, we're just going to keep cranking out shit movies until something hits. Because for every one of those, they get like an Encanto or like, something big or like Moana 2 or something like that that's like really popular. But then I think they're trying to rehash all these old movies and it just is not working for them.
It did at first. I think up until now, it was kind of we'll just remake all those movies. And like, I think The Little Mermaid made quite a bit of money as well. But now it's
I
finally
think
like,
that was like 95 million total, something like that.
I don't
I, I,
know.
I don't think it did well either.
I saw it. It was fine.
I
But
saw somebody comparing, I think the opening numbers for Snow White to The Little Mermaid remake or reboot or whatever, and I think they said that they were both not good as far as money made in the first weekend or something, but Little Mermaid was better.
well, it probably had a longer tail. Get it?
Well,
Yeah, I think that, these movies are finally kind of. I hope the market's kind of responding, which is like, man, I don't want to see any more like regurgitated live action versions. And they got that Lilo and Stitch coming out, and I've never seen Lilo and Stitch, but it's like another shot for shot remake, and it's like, just go watch the originals. Those are great.
everybody wants to see a live action version of a cartoon. I mean, I guess.
Well, they're doing it with How to Train Your Dragon also, and like
Yeah,
it makes no sense to me because How to Train Your Dragon is like a perfect animated movie, and if you're just gonna redo it live scene for scene, it's like I don't know who that's for. It's not for people who are too young to have forgotten about that. I mean, they still remember it coming out, so you're just remaking it for a movie that came out 10 years ago. Little Mermaid, that's like a 40-year-old, 30-year-old movie, so it makes more sense.
they already made How to Train Your Dragon live action. Okay, it was called Reign of Fire, and it had fucking Woody Harrelson in it and a Christian Bale. Okay, it was fantastic.
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I
Yeah,
said. They're the same person.
interchangeable. Interstellar even. Yeah, I'm kind of I don't want to sound like I'm hopeful that everything goes bad with these major companies, but I mean, if you're Ubisoft and you're putting out, you know, you're pumping out the same exact kinds of games every year, and then you finally ran out of them. Like there's no more going back to the well for like Assassin's Creed or whatever.
Right, but that's
Especially
like, how is it that bad when they've made so many of them already?
well, that's the thing is like there's a video online I was watching of Unity, which is the one that took place in Paris, and you can climb the trees and it just works. And then they showed shadows, and it's like, oh, you can't climb the trees that well or easily in shadows, and it's like how do they lose that sort of over time?
That
And
mechanic, yeah.
yeah, and so it's like and funny, since the first Assassin's Creed, people have been asking for one set in Japan, and they always were like hinting that they were doing it, but they always did like they did Valhalla and Mirage and Origins, and Odyssey. These are all like other time periods and they're cool games, but everybody wanted the Japanese one, and then when they finally did it, they
Is it
made
set in
it.
like feudal Japan? Was that
Yes,
the theory there with like samurai and all that shit?
yeah, that's kind of what
Okay.
it is, but like there's two characters you play as. One is like a ninja lady, and the other is um Yasuke, I forgot how to pronounce his name, but he was a Nobunaga's like almost like a court gesture. He was a black man from like Africa or wherever, and he came to Japan and he lived there. He was a real person, but the way they depict him in the game, he's just like rampaging through innocent Japanese people and slaughtering them and to Swahili music, and it's very, very strange. It's like not it's a strange choice to make, I think. So I don't know. I'm just it's interesting that those two things came out at the exact same time, and I don't know.
I never really got into like Assassin's Creed or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with the game. I don't know. It was never kind of like in my wheelhouse, I guess. And I'm not going to start now because it doesn't sound like it's a very good game.
This is the first one I'll skip, maybe ever. I think I've played them all. I have them all. But I don't know. I think a better game would be Ghost of Tsushima if you wanted that sort of experience in feudal Japan. This doesn't seem like it's it.
That shit's supposed to be pretty hard, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Is it like Dark Souls hard?
No, it's like 2 tiers below that, probably.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, Dark Souls is like a real bitch, though, so it's kind of like comparing it's like one of the hardest games you could play.
Well, I sent you that list that's supposed to be like some of the games that like everybody gave up on, right? Because it's so hard. And
Mm-hmm.
like Returnal was one of them, and I always thought that game looked pretty neat.
Returnal's really cool, but I agree with that assessment. It's kind of a bullet hell shooter, but in a third-person action game, and cool idea. I'm good with that, but I played it. It's neat. I play everything though. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I've just been watching Spielberg movies I haven't seen before. So like I went and watched God, what is that one movie with Christian Bale? Empire of the Sun, which I didn't really care for. And then I watched The Fablemans today, and that kind of got me all feeling weird. I was like very uncomfortable after watching that. So it's apparently about his life or something. He wrote it, and it's like about his childhood and how he fell in love with movies, but it also like his mom was kind of nuts, and I guess that's why he's kind of nuts.
I haven't seen that. That was what, Paul Dano,
Yeah.
right?
God, always forget her name. Anyway, yeah, it was. They play his parents, and then the teen actor they got to play a young Spielberg it was great in the movie. I thought it was a good movie. It's just you know I'm kind of revisiting it on the backdrop of like Jaws and Close Encounters and these other films that were like in Close Encounters specifically, the parents that are supposed to be like in charge and they're supposed to have their shit together, they all do not at all. And it's like kind of unsettling as like a kid to watch that movie. Even as an adult, I'm like, this is kind of disturbing. And then I watch The Fablemans and I'm like, he kind of doesn't have like the the highest opinion of his own mother. Perhaps that's why Close Encounters is like the way it is, where the adults are just, it's just chaos. I mean, the dad literally leaves his family at the end of the movie to go on a spaceship. Like, he just abandons Earth, and it's like, fine or whatever. And I mean, that's kind of, it's interesting to go back because he's made so many movies, and so many of the early ones are just kind of like, I don't know, they're almost irresponsible with the children because he
He
was
kind of
so
started
young.
in what, like the 80s,
No,
70s, 80s.
70s. Yeah, he started with Duel, and he started with Jaws, which was the biggest box office
Oh
smash of
yeah,
its
I
time
mean,
ever.
it's an iconic film.
Yeah,
Everybody loves Jaws.
I mean, everybody loves Close Encounters. Also, it's just a little bit. This was a very different movie, but and then you kind of go and watch Fablemans, and you're like, oh, he. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm going to presume that there's some element of truth that like he had filmed their family on like vacation. They went camping and they had like the uncle came too, and he had filmed the family, and he noticed that the mom and the uncle were always together, and they were always kind of doing weird things in the background. And I guess this was something he put into his own movie. He made two separate versions of this vacation. One was the one he made for the family to watch, and the other he only showed her, and it was her doing all this weird shit with the uncle, and she would end up eventually marrying the uncle, and it's very strange. I don't really know what to make of it. I only just watched it. I haven't really unpacked it, but I did find it disturbing and a little depressing for a movie that's about like this director that would go on to make, I don't know, five of the
Huge
greatest
film,
films ever
right?
made. To have him kind of like, I don't know, be so vulnerable about how kind of bad his mom was. She wasn't like a bad person, but she was reckless, and his dad was like an engineer who, just never saw any of this. He was completely oblivious to it. So
Yeah, that's probably like a pet project or something like that when you're Steven Spielberg, kind of just fund your own film like that and try and tell a story from your perspective, really, on how you grew up, I guess. But that all made him into obviously the great filmmaker that he is today. I mean, he's unbelievable.
well, I mean,
So
his first nationwide release was the biggest movie of all time when it came out. He, I mean, that's kind of crazy. He was only like 29 when that movie premiered, and then he only co-wrote like three of his movies. I think one of them was Close Encounters, the other was Fablemans, and then the third I don't even recall. But I mean, he would go from Close Encounters to 1941, which I'm gonna watch. Suppose that was like a huge bomb. All of his movies went over budget because they went over time. He went too long on all of them, and then that covered Close Encounters was like the second biggest movie of that year as well, behind I think Star Wars. So he kind of had he had a buffer for all that, and then 1941 bombed, and he's like, oh, I'm not getting any more like free money for stuff. And then it just happened that George Lucas had this script for something called Raiders of the Lost Ark. George Lucas like funded the entire thing, and then it was like he still came in under budget, but there were no notes, no studio notes. So that
right.
movie is perfect, but like insane. There's like stuff you would have never seen on film before in that movie, and sort of still not since. And I'm fascinated by that because after that he would do other kinds of projects, and leading up into Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, Jurassic Park, but like there was a period
He's
between.
got so many bangers on there.
I know it's pretty interesting, and he reinvented himself a few times, but like The Color Purple is great with Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg, and Empire of the Sun I didn't obviously care for,
Would
but
you say he's like the greatest of all time director?
he's not my greatest of all time. That's the problem. Is like I always think Kubrick is just above everybody else. I can't put anybody above Kubrick, but I would say that Spielberg has made the greatest films of all time broadly speaking, for sure. Because I mean, you go on to Catch Me If You Can, you go on to Bridge of Spies, you go on to Captain Phillips. Like, he never stopped making amazing movies. His children
That's
movies were
true.
terrible, but I mean, like, Ready Player One is a weird movie because like half of that, like all that shit is kind of like referencing his own work. But so is The Fablemans, and it could be so far up its own ass, but it's not. Anyway, I promise I'll shut up now. I just Spielberg's on my mind a lot.
No, it shows because you have been watching a lot of his movies lately. I'd like to say that I've been watching a lot of anything, but I really haven't. Like at least any new stuff, like the list that we go through every year. Like it's been pretty light. I haven't even caught up on Nosferatu. I kind of started watching it because it's on Peacock, and I stopped because you didn't talk enthusiastically about it, so it kind of like shut me off from it a little bit. And I'm also not, I know this is probably considered a bad opinion, not the biggest fan of Nicholas Hoult.
Oh, that is a bad opinion, yeah.
I think he's okay.
He's
I
fine,
mean,
yeah.
I think he's fine. I thought he was good in The Order. Like when I watch stuff that he's in, I'm not like, man, this was really bad because of Nicholas Hoult. But I'm not going to sit here and say he's like the best either.
I mean, he's really good as Beast in X-Men. Obviously, he's amazing in Mad
They were
Max.
trash. He was good in Mad Max.
Days of
But
Future
that's
Past.
a great movie.
Specifically, Days of Future Past is not a bad movie. It's the other two that bookend that one, and I think were pretty terrible.
He was great in Mad Max. I'll give you that.
Witness me! I'm going to pull up my movie list really quick to talk about what I've seen lately.
April looks good for movies. We've got some good stuff coming out in the month of April for sure.
Well, I watched Valerie and Her Week of Wonders, which is the 70s Czech movie, and it was a vampire movie, but it dealt with like incest and stuff. It was very strange, very 70s and very European, I will say. I watched The Sword and the Dragon from 1956. That was a Russian fairy tale movie, and the reason why I watched it is because it just had like enormous puppets, like giant, like 2-story tall puppets in it. And like it was really cool. It was like weird Russian. It's always neat to watch those movies because like they're filming them in the Soviet Union. And so it's like, what could and couldn't they get away with? And, the style is just different from anything else at that time. I watched a movie called Margin Call, which the cast is incredible on this movie. And it was incredible. It's got like Demi Moore's in it, and
yeah, it keeps popping up on like things you might also watch. Like I was watching Rounders with my wife because it's like such in my opinion, a deep cut Matt Damon film. Just because not a lot of people really watch it because people don't really like watching movies about playing poker. So
I don't think I like that movie so much, but it is a unique movie, I will say. I also watched Presence, and that was a Steven Soderbergh movie that it took place. He filmed it all like on an iPhone in a house, and it was excellent. It was about a ghost. I won't say more than that. It came out this year.
yeah, it has Lucy Liu in it. I want to watch that.
Man, that movie, there's some parts in it where like you get chills. That's how well done it is. Yeah, I will say I watched the final season finale of Severance on Friday. I think this season went like this, and then it went meh, and then it came back up at the end there. So it was a great finale with like a lot of bloat in the middle of the season, unfortunately.
So there's this guy on TikTok, since I'm on there, obviously, since I'm the social media director guy here on this here podcast, and his name is LP Longmire. I'm trying to get him on the podcast. He does very thoughtful like breakdowns of shows, and he actually has been doing Severance. Like he watched it and he's like, okay, I think I figured out all of what Severance is like really about and stuff. And he always does like these deep dives into like the thoughtfulness of the director in this and like what the kind of theming was about of the movie and stuff. And I started following him because he always did like alien stuff. So he talked about like Alien Romulus, like he got this like really cool like crate from from the producers of Alien Earth, and it had like a bunch of cool shit in it, but it looked like a crate and it had like the company logo on it. It's not Wayland Yutani because it's a different company in the show, but it's essentially that, right? And so they sent him this like really cool crate and he did like a live unboxing of it like on his channel and shit. And so I'm trying to get him on here and he agreed, and we just have to work out the scheduling and stuff, but I'm gonna see if I can find him on YouTube because I know he created a YouTube channel, and I'll send you some stuff because he does some like really good, thoughtful deep dives I think you would enjoy.
Yeah, I love a good deep dive, particularly with Severance. As you know, I don't see anything. I'm really bad at picking up Easter eggs, and I'm sure Severance is filled with them. I just look at it and go, this is a really beautifully shot show. And then if the episode is kind of a dud, it's like, well, it looked pretty. And that's kind
Well,
of
so I know you've been feeling that way about Severance this season. That it started out like really great, and it seems like it's kind of becoming a dud. And I don't know if you finish it? Did you watch the season finale?
I did.
So apparently it was really good.
It bounced back hard. Yeah,
Yeah,
it comes
and
back hard.
he actually did a breakdown about like, okay, now that the finale's done, like here's what actually like happened, and I guess it might help you see those episodes differently. Or maybe he picks out something that you didn't see in those episodes that kind of pulls a theme together that you weren't aware of or something, you know? So, like I said, I'll send you some of his YouTube stuff if I can find it, but I haven't watched Severance yet. I tried to watch the first episode, and I just feel like I have to either go back and watch the first season or pay a lot of attention to it and like give it
So
a lot of time.
take it from my experience. You don't have to go back and watch the whole first season. You only have to watch the last episode. And I think that would set you up perfectly.
Okay.
Because the rest of the setup you've already got. I think I just find the stuff taking place outside of a Severance world to be not as interesting. And I don't know why. I like the finger traps and the pens and the weird corporate fake bullshit and the vending machines, and like I find all that so interesting. And then the real life stuff happens and you're like, kind of get me back down to the white halls and green floors. And but I think it totally stuck its landing for what it wanted to do. There were two major scenes. I'm not spoiling anything, don't worry. There were two major scenes in that final episode that I thought were like really interesting and awesome. So I love the ethical, moral dilemmas. I also will say, like, I'm still watching White Lotus season 3.
Which you also said you didn't really care for.
Yeah, the last episode was interesting. I didn't expect Sam Rockwell to appear as a guest character and go into how he wanted to be a ladyboy and all of this sexual activity. He had like a 5-minute monologue on his like sexual deviancy that was so wild. I was like, holy shit, he went hard. I also just read that Walton Goggins actually didn't like filming that show at all because his character is such a negative person, and that everybody else on the show had a great time. And it totally makes sense because Walton Goggins is like the one character that is definitely not having any fun on this island. Everybody's making bad decisions, so they're not going to have good fun later on, I'm sure. But Walton Goggins the whole time is just completely miserable, and it's paradise, but he's like in way too deep. And so he's actually been the most impressive performance other than Sam Rockwell's random one. That was cool, but there's just a lot of awesome. I think there's just a lot of stuff that I'm waiting to pay off, and then I'll have a final verdict on this season.
I might have to watch season 3 because I like that Walton Goggins guy and I like Sam Rockwell. So maybe I'll like that season. Season 2, I just didn't really care for. I couldn't get into it. I watched, I think, the first 2-3 episodes maybe and just couldn't really get into it. Season 1 was like phenomenal. And then season 2, you expect to be, I guess, a little bit better because now people know what it is. And it just didn't pique my interest. But season 3, the nice thing is you can watch them independent of each other. You know, like True Detective, you don't have to watch the first season of True Detective to watch season 2 or 3 or whatever because they're all independent of each other. Kind of with the exception of the 4th season of True Detective does have a callback to season 1 as like an Easter egg and stuff. But you could still pretty much watch it independently and it probably will still make sense to you. So, you know, White Lotus, it's an odd show because it's like a comedy drama, I guess.
Yeah, it's not funny, but it's lighthearted. I'm not saying it's not funny. I'm saying I don't laugh because I'm uncomfortable with the things that it's like silly shenanigans, but it's like we're gonna do drugs and make horrible decisions. Haha. And I'm like, oh no, I don't have a good
Yeah,
time watching that.
yeah, it's you're not gonna laugh like hysterically at something like you would in actual comedies because it's a little like I guess darker comedy. At least in the first one with that guy dying like pretty much right off the bat, I guess in the hotel. So
I would say like it's like slapsticky, but like there's a lot of real shit in there. I think where the show bogs itself down, and it did this the last season as well. They do focus on third party characters just enough so that they have something going on, but not enough to fully flesh it out. And this season there's like a guard, and this guard runs the guard shack, and he's like in every episode he's got some central role in something going on in the background, but he's not interesting or has any sort of purpose yet. And so there's stuff like that where it's like the show just maybe has too many characters and focuses too much.
he'll probably serve like a major purpose down the line to justify his entire role in the show.
And
Like
then I'll be eating my words. Sure, it could be that way because he's just too much of
turns
a
out the whole show is actually about him.
yeah, he's like a MacGuffin or something. I don't know, but I'm not a creative type. I don't know. I'm just watching this shit. That's why I don't make television shows. But yeah, that's kind of all of it right now. What's going
Yeah,
on?
it's tough. Like just there's a lot of media to consume. You know, you and I consume a lot of like politics as well, and that, as we know, is going fast and furious pretty much every day. So it's it's hard to want to catch up. Like I've been sitting here reading, trying to read more. My wife got me a book for my birthday, which just passed, about Tool and like basically Tool from like their inception up through like 2009. It's an older book, and then she got me another one about Maynard and stuff. And you know, I've been trying to buy a bunch of different books so that I can read more, get off, you know, just kind of get off of being in front of a computer all the time since I work in front of one, and then like playing video games and stuff. So I figured I'd try to read more a little bit this year.
Yeah, I've been actually taking long breaks from all of social media, and that's been kind of nice. Like doing it the first day is a little weird, but like by day 3 or 4, I feel really good, and
Yeah, you
that
feel
is really
great.
weird.
And then,
Yeah,
then you get back on there and it's like depression kicks in.
it really does, and I always hear people say like you just get off of social media and you'll feel great. And I've always been like, yeah, but will I? Like I'm the kind of person who generally doesn't I don't just take a break from something and go like, "Wow, I'm so glad." But it's real. It's totally
Oh, it's
real.
that's 100% real. And it's good to take a couple days here and there off completely just to like reset. It just makes sense. Even just getting out and like take like forgetting your phone at home is sometimes one of the best things that you can do because then you're just not like walking around scrolling on shit like you're not focused on your phone, you're just out doing whatever you got to do. I forgot my phone at home like a couple of times. I'm just like I'm not going back for it. I don't care. And then it's like 2 hours of just like quiet silence. It's great.
Yeah, going to the gym and just like I have my phone with me for my podcast, but I don't like scroll or anything. I see people scrolling, and I'm like that's kind of weird. Yeah, I've been reading I'm still reading that book, The Jackals, about the Palestinian Liberation Front or whatever, and their like coordination with Prague in the 70s. And man, it's a scholarly book, so it's just references and things. It's not he just deep dived like communist Prague and like their relationship with the Palestinians. And you read it, you just go like, man, this stuff is like as relevant as it ever has been. It's so crazy that it was like 50, 60 years ago, and we're still doing
It's the
this.
same.
It's the
Yeah, it's still
same.
the same.
It's the same actors. It's the same names. Assad's dad is referenced in the book, and there's just all these people like that are still alive, Khomeini, and like you got all these historical figures that are still there doing the same bullshit. I mean, I believe there's a documentary that I can't find. It's called The History of the Destruction of the World or something. And this guy's films are just stock footage. He has no like narration or interviews or anything. It's just footage. And at Gorbachev's trial, I guess, because he wasn't really. He was kind of like unceremoniously let go after the Soviet Union collapsed. But even there, in the background, in some of this archival footage, you could see Putin. Like, these figures, these people in history, like, they just never go away.
Putin was former KGB. I mean, he's been around a long time.
I think this was when he was like the mayor of whatever, maybe Moscow. I don't know, but
Supposedly, they say Putin might actually be like the richest man in the world, but it's like all of his money is tied up in Russia itself or something, like to the tune of like $800 billion or something.
yeah, when you think about his role as an oligarch, like he's the oligarch, and then there's all the other oligarchs, and so yeah, I'm sure he's amassed. I mean, there's no transparency in Russia, so those people, they're not even allowed to ask the question, let alone think it.
Right. Does he have kids?
Yeah, he does.
I wonder what he's gonna do. He's pretty old now, right? Like he's got to be close to 80.
I'll look it up right now, Brad.
Because if he's like close to 80, and obviously he is quote unquote democratically elected there in Russia, he's not.
72.
Okay, so he's still got some time,
Maybe.
I guess.
Russian leaders tend to have short lifespans, although Gorbachev's still alive.
Yeah, but Putin's been the leader there quite a while now.
Since 2000, what, 6,
I
4,
guess.
2? I don't know.
I don't know. He's democratically elected every time, pretty easily.
He doesn't get 100% of the vote though. He only gets 99. Big difference.
Well, the other 1% keeps falling out of windows, so it's like, what do they know?
Or like Navalny, just why don't you go to Gulag now and disappear?
But I think that's like one of the things that goes a little bit like relatively unnoticed is the reach that he truly has, because they poisoned Navalny from touching like a doorknob right in like another country. It's not even like he was in Russia, I don't think, when he got poisoned. I think he was in somewhere in Europe, wasn't he?
I don't know about Navalny. I do know that there was another guy who was a political figure who went against him. I believe this guy got poisoned in Great Britain. I don't know, but yeah, like you said, the reach
That's what
is.
I mean. Like he's got reach for sure, which that's that old style KGB shit. I mean,
Yes.
it's, to be fair, I guess it would be considered the CIA of Russia, right?
Yeah, well, look, I
More
mean,
mafia related.
it goes back to the very beginning of the Soviet Union. Like, Lenin had Trotsky killed with an ice pick, and Trotsky was living in, like, Mexico with, like, Frida Pinto and, like, fucking around, and they got him eventually. So they have long memories and long reach, and they do that. And you've got to wonder, does he have a time limit on his own life? Because, you know, Khrushchev had people killed when he came into power, and all those guys did that. Every time they came into power, they would just kill the people that disagreed with them, and eventually he ran out of people.
They never forget.
They
They hold
really don't.
grudges like crazy.
I mean, Putin's grudge is like thousands of years old. If you listen to his crazy ass rants, he'll talk to you about, like fucking Mongols invading and stuff. Like he's got a warped sense of history, though. I mean, it's not good when you're the leader of a country and you're like obsessed with like thousands of years of your history when it's mostly irrelevant, as a project at least.
Well, I mean, they've been around a long time, so I guess I wouldn't say it's irrelevant.
They've just done a lot of this over time.
Oh yeah,
They shrink and grow and shrink and grow, and I don't know where else to go, Brad. I didn't have much of an agenda coming in other than fun stuff.
yeah. I don't know. I don't think you wanted to get into the darkness of politics today.
I've obviously been avoiding it. We could touch on it. I guess we could talk about the Northrop Grumman winning the contract for the next generation of fighter jet, which, the last time they had a bid for like a next generation fighter jet was like, it would have been the replacement to either the F-22 or the F-35. I forget what that plane was called, but it was like a weird looking plane, and they didn't win.
I thought Boeing won that contract.
I'm sorry, was it Boeing?
I thought Boeing won that contract. I thought
Well, now
they
you
ended
got
up
me wondering.
coming out the victor of that contract to the tune of a few billion,
You're not gonna
like
know.
80 billion.
Northrop Grumman.
But they did win that. Okay. I swear I saw an article that Boeing had won that contract for the F.
F. Oh, let me look up. You might be right. Stand by,
Yeah,
everybody.
the new F-47 is supposed to be the fastest, most lethal fighter jet ever invented.
I
That's what the
believe.
Don says.
I truly believe it is. You're right. It was Boeing. Forgive me. Got a lot of planes on my mind right now. Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's. It says it's been operating for 5 years undetected. So,
I mean, Boeing's having enough trouble keeping their commercial airplanes in the air. They should probably focus a little something on that.
or that space shuttle capsule thing that is. They got it back down. I mean, those astronauts are back too, by the way. But they have Starliner back, and I bet you Boeing is just going to be done with all of this. They're probably just like, get us out of this. It's
Dude,
been a
that's the
nightmare.
funny. That is kind of the funny thing, right? Because the media is focusing so much on just hating Elon Musk that instead of like praising the fact that he saved those astronauts, they just keep focusing on like the Doge shit.
Well, it's like being a
Like
climate
he
change
does this other
activist.
thing too, though. Yeah.
Well, and you're gonna firebomb a Tesla, which is an electric car, and it's like there's a lot of hypocrisies out there on both sides right now. But I don't think that I don't think the Republican Party is going to go out and suddenly start buying Teslas. Like that doesn't make any sense either. So it may just be that he suffers that company suffers as a result of his actions.
I think I saw somebody the other day that was like, we really thought that like Elon Musk like joining Trump would be a good thing. Maybe he would sell Republicans on electric vehicles, and that actually hasn't happened. And now liberals are getting rid of their Teslas and buying gas powered cars again because
Senator Mark Kelly of
every other
Arizona.
EV is like too expensive.
Mark Kelly he replaced his Tesla with an SUV, a Chevy something.
And suddenly the market for the demand for gasoline has increased. Go figure.
The electric car thing, I like that I didn't jump on either side. I was just like, I don't think this is practical and too soon. And I like being proven right, but now I'm being proven right by the other side. Whereas before it was, Republicans who are anti-electric vehicles. I disagree with their logic, but I just had always been skeptical of it. And Tesla as a company, I mean, that
Well, so you know how we talked before about like Delaware and the state of Delaware, and Tesla, I believe, left the state of Delaware. So the reasoning for that, because now we're seeing actually it's a big deal. A lot of companies are starting to pack up and move their headquarters out of Delaware and into Nevada, Texas, places like that, because a judge decided to tell Tesla that they couldn't pay Elon Musk his package, like his salary package or bonus package or whatever, even though he hit the marks he was supposed to, I guess. And a judge was like, no, you can't do that. So they're like, fuck this. And they're getting up and leaving. And now so many companies are starting to leave that they actually want to hold like an emergency session to, I think, like change the laws and stuff in Delaware about these things, because companies are like, we're not letting a judge determine our business practices. And so they're all upping and leaving Delaware, which is it's gonna fuck up their economy if they do.
there's a lot of bad ideas out there right now. They are everywhere. I am just, that's why I'm kind of like dismayed by the whole thing. It's like there's such a level of economic illiteracy that I'm pretty exhausted over the whole thing. I'm exhausted over how taxes work, what tariffs do, import and exports, trade deficits, even capping interest rates on credit cards. Bad idea. It just goes on, and I'm like, I'm keeping track of it all, and I'm like, God, everybody's so fucking dumb.
That one's not gonna. I don't think that one's gonna end up going anywhere. The capping the interest on credit cards. I know MTG and someone else, a Democrat, put
AOC and
forward that
Anna
bill.
Paulina Luna.
That's it. They put forward that bill. I don't think it'll ever actually go anywhere, though.
But it's not about the bill passing or not. It's that the idea is bad, but it will gain purchase with a small group of people. And you see that with tariffs. Tariffs are like really popular with a certain group of people right now, and they don't know how they work. They do not understand tariffs. And it's like, the fuck, man?
I just saw a clip of I think Lutnick talking about tariffs and like how it all works and stuff. It's like I it's hard to even know what to believe when it comes to tariffs, right? Because everybody has like a different definition for it, a different way that it works. Ultimately, it's a consumption tax on consumers, okay? That's how it ends up working. And whether or not these tariffs work, I don't know. Again, prior to like 1913, we didn't have federal income tax. So a lot of our tax revenue came from tariffs, but we live in a different world. We live in a different economy, a global economy. So it doesn't necessarily work that way. But
I mean, a tariff was named after like a town called Tarifa in Spain, and like they would call them tariffs because the ships would go through the port, and the people that owned the port wanted to wet their beak on some of the money coming through, so they just imposed taxes and tariffs on the shipments, and that's where the word comes from. It's like one of the oldest things in trade, and
well,
to
that's kind of why Trump wants to get the Panama Canal back, because there's a Chinese company that owns the canal, basically, like the companies that are on the canal that basically charge, I guess, the ships to come through and stuff. So
well,
it's a money making scheme, really. I guess that's the plan, right?
it's like apparently they're not our enemy at all. I don't know why we care what they do. Our enemy is Canada. Like, we got to get tariffs on Canada. Our number one threat. I
I mean,
mean,
we do put tariffs on China, to be fair.
I know we do. It's just all we've talked about for the past 2 months is how awful Canada is, and how they're a bad trading partner, and how we should just like take them in as part of our country. And it's like these insane ideas that just won't die. I don't know why. Like, why is that still happening? I don't know. It's obsession, I guess.
Well, a lot of people are kind of putting it out into the ether, saying that it is a distraction, confusion, everything else, so that Trump can like push through his entire agenda, and you won't even really notice it because he's hitting you with all like the crazy shit, right?
Flood the zone.
Yeah, I guess there's something to that. It was like Steve Bannon's playbook for a long time was flood the zone, like he said it as much, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
It's working because they have no opposition. There's no opposition out there. They are
No, not at all.
they're holding rallies with Tim Walz and Bernie Sanders.
I think Bernie Sanders gets a good amount of people. I think it was like him and AOC did rally together. But yeah, Tim Walz is like out here saying that people on the right are afraid of his masculinity. No one's afraid of your masculinity, Tim Walz. I'm afraid of you loading a shotgun. That's the only thing I would be afraid of, is being within 3 feet of you.
Yeah, because you'd either get hit by the fucking shell, or you get hit by one of his hand gestures because he's always flinging them, and it's like wow, that's really bad, actually, that party has no response to anything. I mean, that is those two, they're old
I
white
mean,
guys.
the Democrats have like, it's like now down, I think, like to 27% approval rating. Like, and that's not from Republicans. That is the Democratic Party itself is 27% approval rating from Democrats. That is terrible.
That's because they have fostered and incubated a generation of people that are radicals, and they think that the Democratic Party isn't radical enough. And the Democrats are never going to win another election until they learn to moderate. And if they're listening to that 27%, or rather the opposite, the rest of them, if they keep listening to those radicals, it's just not going to work.
So did you watch Bill Maher this week? So going into like their conversation, because people are so disaffected or whatever by the Democrats, people are going to be voting with their feet. They're moving out of these Democratic stronghold states to the point where I think New York is set to lose like 2 or 3 representatives. I think California is set to lose like a few representatives. And then there was a couple other states. I think it was like Minnesota and Oregon were those states as well. So it's like primarily blue states are actually going to be losing seats. and they're going to red states so that it would actually be a lot easier for Republicans to continually win presidential elections.
Well, that Mar had Ezra Klein and Andrew Sullivan on. Ezra Klein has a new book out about moderation because he's a Democrat. He's a journalist, but he's a Democrat. And, you know, he recognizes some of those headwinds and he's trying to tell them, and they are not going to listen to him. And then it's like, it's the same thing they do with Mar. Nobody listens to Mar. They think Mar has the bad ideas too.
Well, I stopped watching Bill Maher for a little while because, like, through the first Trump presidency, it was just Trump, 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 and he just, like, wouldn't stop. And then I started watching Bill Maher again, and because he admits it, the first time that Trump was in office, he let him, like, get in his brain, and it, like, affected him. And he was like, I'm not going to do that again. And he's been very fair, recently towards Democrats and Republicans. And, he talks about, like, disbanding the Department of Education, which they're trying to do, and that it's not inherently a bad thing, which is very shocking for somebody like him to say, something like that. And so he really has kind of, like, come around and is like, well, let me look at these ideas and see if they are actually good ideas. And he has been true to his word. He's not letting it get to him in, like, a negative way, and he's not going to pass judgment on something based off of its rhetoric, right? He's actually looking into some of these issues and is like, oh, that actually isn't a bad idea.
That's why, if you're responsible as a media consumer, you have to listen. You have to, not anybody, right? People like us. You have to listen to the Bill Mahers. You have to listen to Ben Shapiro's. You have to, when Ezra Klein comes on the show and he's talking about his book, he's a man of the left. God, you should listen to him. See what he has to say, at least.
But don't live in an echo chamber. That's, like, I think the main takeaway for everybody. You shouldn't live in this echo chamber life. And
go to the free press, dude. Like, yeah, go get other voices. I don't agree with Batya Ungar Sargon on the free press, but I'll listen to what she has to say, even though right now she's a little nutty. But
yeah, she called herself a MAGA leftist. Like, nutty.
Well,
that's nutty shit, but
it's nutty but accurate, I guess.
But I guess it's a thing now, right? Because you had people vote for AOC and Trump on the same ticket, so I guess that can be a thing.
I mean, his policies are, like, kind of a Democrat dream in some ways. Like, that's why it's kind of interesting to watch the complete lack of principles on the right, because they just say these judges are bad now because they're getting involved. Whereas before it was always like, we should probably defend the judiciary because we're not always going to be in power, and that's a check. And now they're like, we should impeach judges who disagree with us. And that's a really poisonous thing to do.
But Democrats wanted to poison the Supreme Court. In fact,
they started it.
So they kind of were doing that. And I believe Joe Biden also defied some court orders here.
He sure did.
And AOC said that he should defy judges' orders. So, and now they're all kind of, like, backstepping on that kind of shit. So it's like, you guys all started this rhetoric, and now that they actually want to do it, which I think is a horrible idea, like impeaching a judge for, making a ruling you don't like. Sorry, that's not exactly how the system should work. I'm not sitting here saying they should impeach judges, but it does beg the question that if you have a judiciary that completely overrules the executive for anything at any time, then what's really the point of having a president when you could just basically part it out to, like, judges?
Well, here's the thing, right? You go to the Supreme Court, you have it adjudicated there. The problem is that after it's been adjudicated, these dumbasses online will not read what the justices write. They won't read it. They just go, they didn't do what we wanted. What the fuck, Amy Coney Barrett? And it's like, oh, she was your, like, golden child when she was nominated, but now she's like this horrible person because she interpreted the law differently. Go read what they write and stop projecting your own stupidity on everything. Like, they're all bad now.
Dude, the left, like, was terrible on Trump's first term when they were putting in people like Neil Gorsuch and stuff like that. But the Supreme Court has helped Democrats out and people who are on the left quite frequently, actually. in a lot of things. But then, they don't like the decisions about like affirmative action that came out that we've talked about. They clearly don't like, the Roe v. Wade decisions and things of that nature, even though there's backstops to those, right? Like making them state run, because states can make their own laws. That just makes sense. And I think you're right. Like, take it to the Supreme Court, adjudicate it, and let's see what they say, because there's so many district federal judges. Like, so yeah, you're a federal judge, but would that give you the power to supersede like an executive order? Or does that have to be done by the Supreme Court? I think that would actually be a very interesting argument to see, because then if you can no longer go to a federal district judge to supersede an executive order, that would be pretty new, because Democrats have been using the Fifth Circuit or the Ninth Circuit constantly to kind of override Trump on things. They did it in his first term as well, and they just call that the checks and balances. So it would kind of be like a redesigning of the checks and balances based off of the Supreme Court interpretation, I guess.
I mean, you can't get everything you want, and you can't get it fast, and that's by design in our Constitution.
Dude, do you know how bad people will freak out if the Supreme Court says that federal district judges can't supersede a president's executive order?
I don't believe that they would, actually.
No, they will. They will. Only because Trump's in office. And then when they're back in office, they'll love it. Because Republicans will try to sue, and they'll be like, oh, can't do that. It won't matter.
That's sort of how the whole thing works. We just see it. It's just the institutional rot continues, and the left has been degrading the Supreme Court for a number of years now, and it would appear that the Republicans have decided to join them, and it leaves me just sort of on the sidelines wondering when all this madness will ever end, or if maybe this is how it just should go. Maybe we should maybe things should get worse before they get better. I don't know.
250 years, Aaron.
Well, I'm not there yet. I'm just saying that I'm watching things happen in real time, and I'm not thrilled. But hey, man, all I could do is talk about it on here and then let everybody on TikTok complain about how I look.
That's how it's going to work.
Yeah. All right, well, we've been going for a little bit. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts.
No, except I obviously have dogs barking in the background.
Yeah, it sounds like it's time to wrap it up. So I will.
Yeah, they want to play.
Yeah, I'll cut loose, and we'll talk next time.
All right, see you, pal.
Bye.